Welcome back to the next episode of Meet the Pros. Today we're meeting with Brian Moulaison. He is a tax lawyer, and he's here today to help explain to us the effects of the foreign buyer ban implemented by the federal government starting January 1st of this year. Now that ban was essentially started to stop the foreign investor from speculating in the Canadian real estate market, but it does have an effect on people already living here. And Brian's going to explain to us today, what's going on today in Canada for people every day. So Brian, please, thanks for taking the time to share with us. So tell us what's going on.
Hi, Paul. So as you mentioned, starting January 1st, 2023, non-Canadians are prohibited from purchasing residential real estate in Canada. And that will be enforced for the next 2 years. And it was enacted through the Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians Act, so federal act. And basically, as you mentioned, we often think of foreign investors when thinking about these types of properties, but with the new regulations that were published in December, we see that these measures actually affect Canadians already living or people already living in Canada. So the ban affects temporary residents, for instance, who have a study permit. So in order to get an exemption from the ban, there are conditions. So the conditions are that they have filed income tax returns under the Income Tax Act for each of the 5 taxation years preceding the year in which the purchase was made. They have to be physically present in Canada for a minimum of 244 days in each of the 5 calendar years preceding the year in which the purchase was made. The purchase price of the residential property should not exceed $500,000, and they have not purchased more than 1 residential property. Same thing for the work permits. So there is a ban for people, for temporary residents here present in Canada on a work permit, unless they meet same or similar conditions, which in this case is a minimum period of 3 years within the last 4 years preceding the purchase. Okay, so in this case, we can think of, for example, in Quebec, where Quebec has tried to get, for instance, nurses from other countries to come and work here to assist, especially with the pandemic in the last 2 years. Well, they might be living now in Quebec with a work permit, but they would be banned in purchasing a property because they wouldn't qualify for the exemption. So this is a measure that affects them, and by the end of the 2 years, depending on how long they've been here, they would need to wait for the end of the 2-year period that the act addresses. So in many cases, owners will have to verify, or at least have to consider, who are they selling to, although they might not be penalized unless they knowingly sell. One of the things is that the act addresses to penalize, if you will, the actual purchasers. So if, for instance, a non-resident does purchase a property within the 2-year ban and is assisted by professionals, all of these people might actually be fined up to an amount of $10,000. The other issue as well is that the federal government could potentially get an order from the Superior Court in order to force the owner to sell the property, okay, and the owner that would be selling the property could not recover more than the cost or the price that he actually paid for, which means that if there's a if the value has gone up on the property, well, it would be the Canadian government that would likely benefit from that.
Well, there you go. Well, Brian, hey, that's actually some great information. I know there's been a lot of confusion about this foreign buyer ban, and you've really helped kind of lay out really kind of what it is and what the consequences are as well. I got to admit, I got to feel bad for the person coming here to help us out, the nurse as an example, coming to Quebec to help with our hospital problem, and then as a reward has difficulties trying to buy a home while they're here. Obviously, no policy is perfect, but we can see, I guess, the idea behind it was really to try and keep those, big money investors out of the real estate market in the hopes of making it affordable for everybody at the end of the day. You know what, Ryan, I appreciate you so much sharing your time and your information with us today. Super appreciated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attach all your contact info to this video so anybody can get in touch with you, especially if they have tax related questions, knowing that tax season is right around the corner too. They're definitely going to want to talk to you, and especially if you own a small business, Brian is your guy. So thank you so much for your time today, and we'll be in touch soon for sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul.